may have thought, my dear Watson, that with my demise you had heard the last of your old friend Sherlock Holmes. As you will now perceive, this is not so. Since our last meeting all those years ago, I have assiduously devoted my retirement to recording, as accurately as memory will allow, details of certain events that took place during my youth. Adventures that took place some years before you and I met, and of which I have hitherto apprised no one. The first of these adventures I choose to call The Mystery of the Manor House. It was November in the year 1871. I was then barely 17 years of age and returned home unexpectedly early for the Christmas holiday, my school having prematurely closed on account of a mild typhoid epidemic. We lived at Pendarg on the fringe of the Lancashire fells, and as was my custom, I walked the 6 or so miles from the station, finally taking the shortcut through the woods to Pendarg Manor House, where, for generations, my ancestors had lived as squires. It was the first time I had been home in almost a year, and it was to prove a homecoming full of the most singular occurrences.
Hello! Hello! I'm home.
Jasper! Jasper!
Hey, you! Boy! Get off this land. This is private property. And who the devil are you? That is no concern of yours. Just get off this land. Now, wait a minute. Well, don't say I didn't warn you. See him off, Raj.
Well, well, well. So, the prodigal has returned. Stand still.
Good day, Uncle Gideon.
What are you doing here, boy? And in that state?
Some imbecile up at the house set his dog on me.
Nosing about, were you? Face facts, boy. You had no right to be there. You know, no, not anymore.
No right?
Don't feign obtuseness with me, boy. No right whatsoever. Surely you don't mean to tell me you don't know. I mean, your father did write to you.
No, I haven't heard from Father in almost a year.
Well, bless my soul. The boy don't know. You'd best get up, boy.
Well, what is the matter, Uncle Gideon? What has happened at home?
Fate, boy. Walk on. Tempted once too often by your feckless papa, has turned a malevolent aspect to the Holmeses. However, you have been granted an angel of mercy in the seraphic shape of my own dear sister, whose domicile I am privileged to share, and to whom I should be only too pleased to deliver you. You best spark yourself up, boy. She don't take kindly to ragamuffin.
It was now I learned the melancholy truth that my father had been made bankrupt, that he and my mother had fled abroad to France, that my beloved manor house had been sold, and that I had been put out to board with Aunt Rachel, a distant cousin of my father's.
We in this household, Sherlock, are governed by 3 simple proverbs. Namely, that cleanliness is next to godliness, that manners maketh man, and that punctuality is the politeness of kings. Now, do you suppose, having been brought up in such a bohemian atmosphere, that you will be able to live by these simple precepts?
Oh, yes, Aunt Rachel. I'm sure I shall.
Then might I suggest that you make my dear daughter Charity your model? If you do, we shall none of us have any cause for complaint, shall we, Brother Gideon?
Indeed not. Indeed not. There, boy, you may observe the very alpha and omega of propriety.
And there are just two more things. First, I should prefer that you do not wear that shabby old cape and that vulgar billycock hat when you're out walking with the family. And second, that no further reference be made under my roof to the unfortunate manner of your parents' downfall. It brought great shame upon the family.
I'm quite sure, Aunt Rachel, that my parents never did anything shameful.
Don't try to defend him, boy. He was prodigal.
But Uncle...
Sherlock, there's no denying that shame. Now, I am, of course, not a close relative, but I am a Holmes by virtue of my marriage to my late and lamented husband, God rest his soul.
Amen.
But even I, despite my own unremitting prudence, have been unable to escape some portion of that shame. Now, I'm not complaining, you understand. We all have our crosses to bear. However, I promised your mother I would take care of you, and I am not one to shirk my duties, no matter what the cost. Now, is there anything you'd like to ask me before we all go about our various duties?
Did my parents leave no word as to when I might expect to see them again, Aunt Rachel?
None.
Feckless, prodigal, and irresponsible.
And the new people up at the Manor house, who are they?
The Turnbulls. Oh, a most charming couple. Wouldn't you say, Brother Gideon?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And just what such people should be, boy. A credit to the neighborhood.
You rang, Mum?
Mrs. Cunliffe, perhaps you'd show young Master Sherlock here to his room.
Yes, Mum. My, and hasn't he grown, Mum?
I'm over 6 feet high, Mrs. Cunliffe.
He looks more. Not still growing, I hope.
Why, Mr. Holmes, your leg's all covered in blood.
It's nothing, Mrs. Cunliffe. I had a brief encounter with an Irish wolfhound, I'm afraid.
And came off second best.
That dog may have had rabies, Mamma, and he may go mad.
Oh, Charity, whatever put such terrible thoughts into your head? However, I think that leg should be looked at. Sherlock shall go to see old Dr. Sourbutt's. A silly little monkey of a man, and the good Lord knows why I ever permitted that niece of his to marry that toffee-nosed foundling he took in.
Indeed.
But he should be able to bandage a simple cut.
Well, there's nothing much wrong with that. You live. Well, I think I'd better put a bandage on it, though, eh? Young'uns like wearing bandages, I know. Now, let me see. Where did I put that bandage? Johnny! Oh, he's fully qualified now, you know.
Yes.
I told you he married me niece, didn't I?
No, you didn't.
Well, he did, in the summer. I didn't see you at the wedding.
I wasn't there.
Oh.
I didn't come home this summer. I spent the holidays with a friend from school, Cromaway.
Well, I don't know him. Come to think of it, I didn't see your parents there either, did I?
That is hardly surprising in the circumstances, Dr. Zarbat.
Circumstances? Oh, that. Yes, well, you mustn't let that distress you, young'un. They'll bounce back. They always do.
Oh, yes. I expect to hear from them any day now. I shall most probably join them in France.
That's the spirit, young'un. That's the spirit, eh? Remember this?
Oh, yes.
Well, I can still manage a little tune or two. Johnny, look who's here.
Yes, I know, George. I let him in.
Well, if you're so jolly clever, perhaps you'll know where my bits of bandage are.
In your tobacco jar, George.
Ah.
Where does he keep his tobacco, then?
In the toe of the Chinese slipper on the wall over there. He thinks I don't know.
Here we are, then. Lemonade.
Good idea, Charlotte. Young uns like lemonade, I know.
He obviously thinks you're still a child.
All right, then, young un. Leg up, leg up.
For what we're about to receive, may the Lord make us truly thankful. Amen.
Well, really, Brother Gideon, can you credit it? Despite all my efforts, that wretched boy is late for his very first meal.
Bad blood, my dear. Artistic blood. It will always out.
Can he be so inconsiderate?
I'm afraid it will take some time, my dear, to break him of the bad habits of a lifetime. But we must persevere. It is, after all, our duty. And believe you me, it will be the making of him.
The carrier's at the kitchen door, Mummy's brought Mr. Sherlock's luggage from the station.
Luggage?
2 tin trunks and several boxes, Mum. He wants paying.
Paying? Have we expected to foot every bill?
Just another cross, Gideon. Just another cross.
I say, John, what do you know about the new people up at the Manor House?
The Turnbulls? Not a lot, really. They keep themselves very much to themselves. She seldom goes out, and they do little entertaining. But they're very well thought of locally, and they do head the subscription lists for all the local charities.
Yes, well, he was a colonel in the Indian Army. I met him once in the tap room at the Bull Hotel, Preston. A nice fellow. You know, crack shot, tigers.
Mrs. Turnbull's none too strong, apparently. That's why she doesn't go out much. A delicate constitution weakened by her years in India.
Really?
So they say. I've not attended her myself.
The woman I saw sitting on the lawn there, who might she have been?
Well, that would have been she, wouldn't you say, Charlotte?
Oh, almost certainly. As far as I know, there are no other women at the house. And all the servants are Indian.
Curious. You see, as I approached her, she got up and ran like a deer. That's hardly the action of a woman with a weak constitution, would you say?
Certainly doesn't sound like our Mrs. Turnbull. She's usually carried about the grounds in a litter.
Polky, John. That's the proper name for what she's being carried about in. It's Indian, the colonel told me.
And what of the young man with the dog?
Oh, no doubt about him at all. That will have been young Jasper.
Seated young puppy.
He's the colonel's nephew, and he likes to think of himself as the young master.
Oh, does he?
I have every gory detail. Death, self-confession and repentance from the gallows tree. Half a penny is all I ask. Just 1 penny.
Sounds like Natty Dan.
Aye, the annual visit. He'll be wanting his usual cough cure, no doubt. Charlotte, me dear, open the door. Johnny, put away the best port and bring out the elderflower wine.
Knowing some parts of the country, the running patterers are all gone. It's progress. Newspaper, the advance of literacy.
There's no such luck around here, I'm afraid. Natty Dan is still very much alive.
Well, well, well. It's young Master Sherlock.
Hello, Natty. It's good to see you.
And it's good to see you, sir. Hey, I've got one here that you'll like.
All right. Give him his medicine, Johnny.
There you are, Natty.
Thank you, sir. Your very best health.
Me. There you are.
Cheers. Ooh, that is powerful good medicine. Why, my poor parched throat feels already more supple. My vocal cords more flexible.
Good.
I say, being gentlemen of medical propensity and faculty, perhaps you would care to hear, for 1 penny only, a full and unexpurgated account of the diabolical practices carried out by Dr. Jones of Preston upon his unfortunate patients, whilst in a state of mesmerism.
The last time I heard you tell that tale, it was a Dr. Smith and it happened in Blackburn.
Well, you see, in truth, alas, such practices are proliferating. and growing more diabolical by the day, and what is more mesmeric. But I have something altogether more sophisticated for you, dear boy. A genuine London crime. Most horrible mutilation by an unnatural mother. She cooked her baby in the copper.
Oh, Natty.
In a house in the Harrow Road. Now, that is worth a penny, sir.
Of anybody's money.
Yes.
You see, John, in recent years, I have applied myself to the study of the inordinate cruelty of which human beings are capable. Can we ever truly understand such things, I wonder? Oh, I appear to be temporarily embarrassed. I wonder if perhaps you had a penny you could lend me, John?
Oh, very well. Here you are, Natty.
God bless you, sir. 1,000 thanks. Hey, what about this one? Entire family massacred. Cut, hacked, and battered, as only a madman or savage could have effected it. In a lonely smithy in a remote part of that county that they call Buckinghamshire. And no less than 19 dead.
Oh.
Now, that is the very latest sensation, sir. I do assure you.
The Denham massacre took place over a year ago, and the number killed was in fact 7.
Poetic license, dear boy. Anyway, I have the full and only true account of the trial of the murderer.
John Jones, alias Jenkins, alias Reynolds, alias Owen.
He's too jolly clever by heart.
The key witness in the case was a bricklayer named Charles Coombs, who said that Jones had come to his lodgings on the Saturday afternoon in an old corduroy suit, but on the Sunday he was in a good suit and flush with money, treating both girls and men. Isn't that right, Natty?
Yes. Well, I shall be on my way. I go now to that haunt of happy memories, the Manor House. Do you know, I've not been there since the new owners took up residence.
Well, I hope they afford you a better welcome than they did me.
They will, dear boy. They will. I am welcome everywhere. I bid you all good day.
Thank you, Ranjit.
Excuse me, Saab, but there's a peddler at the kitchen door. He peddles tales of murders and crimes, Saab.
Oh, do not bother me now. Give him a halfpenny and send him on his way.
No, wait. Have you ever seen this man before?
No, Saab.
How tall is he?
Tall, Saab. Only very small. About 5 feet only.
And his weight? Could you estimate his weight?
Well, he's about 7 or 8 stone, I'd say, Saab.
Old or young?
Oh, old, Saab. Perhaps 50, maybe.
Then invite him in.
Very well, Saab. If that is your wish.
In, Saab. In. You invite this beggar in.
Yes, Ranjit. I think he will serve our purpose rather well. Come, we have work to do.
It has come to my notice, Sherlock, that you have overnight filled your room with a considerable amount of material of a most undesirable nature.
Undesirable, Aunt Rachel?
Undesirable. I presume you understand the meaning of that word.
I understand its meaning perfectly, Aunt Rachel. Its application in this instance I find somewhat puzzling.
You mind your manners, boy. We have none of your public school quibbles here.
I'm sorry, Uncle Gideon. But you see, the things in my room, and I assume, Aunt Rachel, you mean my collection of criminal relics and records, are not objects of mere idle curiosity. Crime is a serious study for me.
Serious it may be, Sherlock, but natural it most certainly is not. It is morbid. It is ghoulish. It is, moreover, totally inappropriate in a house in which ladies reside, especially young ladies.
I saw a skeleton, Mamma. It was horrible.
Oh, there, you poor dear child.
But, Aunt Rachel, it is surely no more morbid than archaeology, no more ghoulish than history.
Don't argue with your aunt, boy. If she says a thing is morbid, then morbid you may be certain that thing is. She's a woman of great sensitivity.
I'm sorry, Sherlock, but in this instance I must be firm. Those things must go.
Good night, sweet prince, and flights of angels sing thee to thy rest.
I play the piano ever so much better than you play the violin.
Hello, Charity. Here, I've something for you.
What?
Come here.
Oh, what is it?
That, Charity, is the thumb of Calcraft the hangman.
Ooh.
And when that thumb senses the presence of an informer or a sneak, do you know what it does?
No. What does it do?
It moves slowly up, and it waggles. Like this.
Oh, you horrid boy! I shall tell Mamma when she returns. You just see if I don't.
What a truly nauseous child.
Master Sherlock! I've got something to tell you.
Shh! Not so loud, Natty. Go round to the kitchen door. I'll be down directly.
Righto.
Shh!
Dear lady, do open the door. I have been invited in.
Not into my kitchen, you haven't.
But I have, you know. I have. And by the young master himself.
Do let him in, Mrs. Cunliffe.
I really don't think you should, Mr. Holmes.
Oh, there's no harm in him, I do assure you. Father always allowed him into our kitchen.
Well, your father was a very easygoing gentleman, Mr. Holmes. That much you must admit.
And you are a very kind-hearted lady, Mrs. Cunliffe. Do allow him in just this once for my sake.
Oh, very well then, my dear. But he's not to stay long. If the mistress returns and catches him here, she'll skin us all alive.
Hello, my lovely.
Sir. That's it. Well, what do you want? And I warn you, I haven't a penny in the world to spend.
No. Send new people out of the house, dear boy. What a welcome.
They set the dog on you.
They did not. It was a very nice dog.
Nevertheless, they turned you off, I'm sure.
They did not. They asked me in.
You were very lucky.
Sat down and waited on I was by an Indian tall as a tree. There was food and wine and fruit and wine and food and wine and fruit. Pineapple.
Pineapple?
Yeah. And huge golden oranges and apples, as big as your head.
Your failing, Natty, as I've always told you, is that you push credibility to the limit.
I'd go back again this very night, at their invitation. Pressed upon me, I might add. And tomorrow, I will bring you back a pineapple. Disbeliever.
Very well. We'd best not meet here. We'll meet at my old hideaway in the woods, the forester's hut, remember?
Yes.
If you don't bring me a pineapple, I shall expose you throughout the county for the trifler with the truth that you are.
What in heaven's name is that man doing in my house?
Good Lord! Is that the time? 1,000 pardons, my sweet lady, but alas, I must depart. I'm due at the manor house to partake of pineapple. Good day.
want to see you, John.
May I come in?
By all means. What have you got there?
Scientific apparatus.
That is equipment necessary for my chemical experiments.
Oh.
I wondered if perhaps I might leave it here for safekeeping.
Certainly. And if you ever want to do any work here, I'm sure we'll be able to find you a corner of laboratory space, eh, George?
Well, as long as you don't blow the place up. What's the matter, young'un? Won't she let you have it at the house, eh?
Well, she won't, no. She's not terribly happy about my criminal relics, either. Doesn't even like my hat.
I'm not surprised she doesn't like the hat. It's a terrible old thing.
Now, wait a minute. I've got something here that just might suit you. Somebody sent this to me from Scotland last year, and I look a damn fool in it. If it suits you, young'un, you're very welcome to it.
Oh, that's splendid.
Yes, it's a deer-stalking hat, George.
Yes.
Well, I think he looks very smart in it. I'll take the billycock and burn it. I'm not surprised you were chased off the manor house land if you were wearing this.
You know, John, I've been thinking about the manor house.
Well, that's understandable.
You know, there's something strange about it. Something that nags at the back of my mind.
What sort of thing, Sherlock?
I don't know. I can't put my finger on it at the moment.
You mean it's changed in some way?
No. No. But that's it. You've got it, Charlotte. It has not changed. It's had new owners for the best part of a year now, and yet nothing has changed. That is curious.
Who the devil's that?
Nobody that matters, Colonel Turnbull.
Is he all right? What have you done to him? This is nothing to do with you. Leave him be. He's dead. He's dead. You've killed him. You've killed him!
And, how do you think the boy looked, my dear?
Well enough, I suppose, all things considered. He appears to have accepted his situation with uncommon ease.
He'd not want anyone to think otherwise, of course. But his is a curious nature, you know, Charlotte. Intense, mercurial, subject to violent extremes, as indeed was his father. Added to which he has reached that most unsettling age between boyhood and manhood.
You do think he'll be all right?
Oh, I think so, although I fancy we may find his behaviour somewhat erratic over the next few weeks.
I'm afraid that living with Aunt Rachel won't be of much help to him. Oh, it's a pity we can't do something.
We can, of course we can. We can be sympathetic and understanding, although I know he can be extremely irritating.
So can we all, Uncle. So can we all.
Hmm? Oh.
Now, don't forget to give this to old Mrs. Ferguson and tell her I hope she gets much better soon. Bye, Uncle. Bye.
Goodbye.
Yeah, he's coming round. Then all is well. Give him a glass of water. You need stay no longer, Colonel. This is no concern of yours. If you say so.
Whatever happened?
You had a bit of a turn, old chap.
Suddenly, I couldn't breathe. That's not like me at all.
Too much wine, I shouldn't wonder. You'll be all right.
Here, drink this.
Jasper, Ranjit, I'm sick to death of being on my own. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know there was anyone here.
It's all right, Aunt Elizabeth. We've just been regaled with some of the great crime stories of the century. But you know, you really should stay in your room. You recall what the doctor said about overtaxing yourself.
I say, lovely lady, I know you.
I am certain that a man such as yourself, who spends his time travelling the country, must frequently meet people whom he mistakenly believes he has met before. Is that not so?
Well, yes. I suppose I could be wrong.
Vesper! He's gone! He's gone! He can't have got very far. He's probably in the woods. Come on!
Here's to the weather. Wet or dry. The drier outside, the better. And here's to myself, be I dry or wet. Me inside's better weather. Who's there? Coming in if you're coming. Hello. What are you doing here?
I'm just taking this little lot to the hideaway, Mrs. Cunliffe.
Right you are.
Letter from a distant suitor, Mrs. C.
Why, Mr. Holmes, however, did you know?
Well, I can tell from its crumpled state that letter's been read a good many times. Now, normally, only one sort of letter is read so often, a letter from a suitor. And if it was someone local, why would they have need to write? Hence, a distant suitor.
Well, I never did.
Am I right?
You are.
Who is it, Mrs. Cunliffe? Anyone I know?
Not yet, but you shall. You certainly shall. He's a guard on the mail train. Lives in London, he does. And the first man as has took my fancy since my poor dear Jack was killed in India. All them years ago.
His name?
Hudson. Tom Hudson.
Well, I look forward to discussing the London North Western Railway System with you, Mr. Hudson. There are one or two points about its operation that do need clarification. I'll get this thing out of here, Mrs. Cunliffe. See you later.
It was with a strange sense of excitement that I walked the woods that morning on the way to my old hideaway. They looked different now. Their ancient homeliness had gone, and the old woodman's hut in which formerly I had played my childhood games now represented for me at once a refuge and an outpost secretly established in hostile country.
Natty. All right, Natty, where's the pineapple? Poor Natty. Hey, bag, old Mo. What were you trying to tell me, Natty?
My hideaway seemed suddenly chill as later that morning the doctors completed their preliminary examination. Natty Dan's body lay now covered by a sheet. But beneath that sheet I fancied I could still see his face, frozen in its deathly grin. There were no obvious signs of violence. The doctors removed the body to the surgery for further study, leaving me alone with the sole representative locally of the law, one Sergeant Grimshaw.
Hey, bag, old Mo.
Hey, bag means woman, Sergeant.
Oh, does it now?
It's patter as cant. Slang, you know.
Is it now?
Mind, the old Mo puzzles me. Perhaps a woman called Old Mo, I suppose, a nickname they all seem to have. Maybe he wanted me to find someone on the road known as Old Mo. Maybe she had something to do with his death.
Now, hold your horses, lad. We're not even sure yet how he died.
How would I set about finding such a woman, Sergeant?
Do you want my advice? Don't worry your head about it, lad.
But Natty was clearly trying to tell me something.
And you have now told the police. Correct procedure. Very commendable. I shall mention that in my report.
Oh, thank you.
You state that the deceased were last heading on his way back to the manor house.
That's what he said. That he'd been in and been fated and then been invited back again.
Then maybe I'd best have a couple of words with Colonel Turnbull.
You know, Sergeant, it occurs to me...
Now, leave it, lad. Take my advice. Don't worry your head about it. All right, young Holmes. Home. Home. Holmes.
Silly ass.
Sergeant Grimshaw, sir.
What brings you here, Grimshaw? Poachers or the police charity?
Neither this time, sir.
Damn glad to hear it. Between them, they'll bankrupt me. Well, speak up, man. What is it?
There were a peddler seen in the neighbourhood yesterday. I wondered if he might have called here.
Now, the devil should I know, man. Besides, I wasn't here yesterday.
I wondered if I might have permission to question your servant, sir.
Well, as long as it doesn't interfere with their duties, by all means. You can start with me, bearer there. Ranjit, did you see a peddler fella yesterday? What sort of peddler was it, by the by?
A running patterer, sir.
Ah, mendacious murders and impossible robberies, with little regard to either truth or propriety. Well, Ranjit, did you see such a fella yesterday?
Yes, sir. One did call.
And?
We sent him away, sir.
I suppose nobody, for any reason at all, invited him in?
In, sir.
No, silly question. And he appeared to be in good health when he left here?
As far as one could tell, sir.
There's just one other thing. Was this his only visit? Or had he been, by any chance, here before?
Why all the questions, Grimshaw?
This man was found dead this morning, sir, in the old forester's hut in the woods.
Was he now? Who found him?
Young Sherlock Holmes from down the village.
And do you know what killed him?
Not yet, sir, no. Well, I think that's everything, so with your permission, Colonel, I'll be getting along. Oh, there were one other thing. You didn't answer my question. Had he been here before?
No, sir, he had not.
Well, thank you. Well, sorry to have disturbed you, Colonel. Good day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Sherlock, if you're perched there like a vulture hoping for something sensational or mysterious, I'm afraid I'm about to disappoint you. It's natural causes, George. As I thought, heart failure induced by tetanus.
As you thought? By Jupiter, I told you that the minute I clapped me ogles on him back in the hut.
Yes, well, one has to be certain, George.
I was certain. I've already filled in the certificate.
His face, that horrible expression.
Ah, what you saw there, young'un, is what we call the Hippocratic smile. The old Rhesus sardonicus, as the ancients called it.
Yes. Extreme muscular contraction is a characteristic of tetanus. The expression is caused by a spasm of the facial muscles.
Muscles go hard as a ball.
Yes, that'll do, George.
And what would be the cause?
May I tell him, Johnny? Or are you afraid that my description might offend his delicate sensibilities?
No, you can tell him, George. Just try not to be too lurid about it.
In a word, young'un, dirt. From the smallest wound, soil, manure, road sweepings, even something as simple as a scratch from a thorn has been known to prove fatal.
Sergeant Grimshaw is here to see you, John.
Oh, I'm sorry to disturb you, Doctor. Any news yet?
Yes, Sergeant, it's natural causes. Dr. Sauerbatz has done your certificate.
Yes, well, I've just slapped my moniker on it.
Thanks. Well, that's what we like. Open and shut case. Oh, and I've a little advice for you, my young fella. That natty Dan of yours, he spun you a fair old yarn, you know. He only went up to the manor house once, and then he didn't so much as put a foot across the threshold. Sent him packing right off, they did. You've got to learn how to sort the wheat from the chaff, you see. Comes with experience.
And what about old Mo?
Don't worry your head about that, lad. It's no concern of yours. Good day, Mrs. Whitney. Gentlemen.
Good day, Sergeant.
Oh, cheer up, Sherlock. He's like that with everyone. I say, have you seen the time? Shouldn't you be getting along home?
Oh, don't you start, please.
But you've been out since first thing this morning. Your Aunt Rachel will be getting worried about you.
There. What does that one look like?
Oh, and isn't that just as pretty as a picture?
I hate it.
Yes, dear, I think perhaps you're right. It's not very becoming. Something blue, perhaps, Mrs. Cunliffe.
Why can't I have a new dress, Mamma?
Because there isn't time, my pet. Besides, some of these have hardly been worn. Oh, what's that one you've got there, Mrs. Cunliffe?
You are, Mum. Mind, it's not as pretty as some we've seen. Well, leastways, not to my thinking.
There. How about that, dear?
Yes, that's quite pretty.
It's very pretty.
But it's too short.
Oh, Mrs. Cunliffe will soon see to that, won't you, Mrs. Cunliffe? There.
Merciful heavens! Good gracious, Rachel, what is going on? Can it be that this gold half-hunter, which once graced the waistcoat pocket of our own dear father, and to which, to my certain knowledge, has kept perfect time for well nigh a quarter of a century, can now suddenly be wrong? Is it not approaching 1 of the clock?
Snakes alive! Luncheon will be a little late today, Brother Gideon.
Late?
Late. We have had such a morning, and I have such news.
We've been invited to take tea at the Manor House. They're sending the coach for us tomorrow afternoon.
Really? All of us?
All of us. Did I not suggest to you, Brother Gideon, that certain benefits might accrue as the result of a certain act of charity performed by certain people on the behalf of a certain person?
Oh, him? Is he coming too?
Of course. Do you know, he's not such a bad lad.
But he's going to be late for luncheon again, even though luncheon's going to be late.
I left the doctors more than ever convinced that something was amiss. It was a purely intuitive feeling, but acting on impulse, I decided to return without delay to the hut in the woods. At that time, a magnifying lens was, alas, well beyond my financial reach, but my eyes were uncommonly sharp, and I examined the floor minutely. However, the only object that claimed my attention was a single and unusually large rose thorn, which, being an avid collector of the unusual, I slipped without thinking into my pocket. I then stepped outside the hut again. Here I noticed the clear impression of recent animal tracks. There was something curious about them, that much was certain. But being less than proficient in such matters, I determined to seek assistance. Thus, I set off in search of a perpetually elusive acquaintance of mine who in earlier days, when he'd been employed briefly by my father, had become my companion and mentor in the study of country law.
Mrs. Candid.
Mr. Sherlock, you did give me a start bursting in like that.
You pricked your finger, I am sorry. Now, Mrs. Cunliffe, do you happen to know if Newbugs is still in the neighbourhood?
Oh, Mr. Sherlock, you're never going to take up with that dirty rapscallion again.
Mrs. Cunliffe, I know very well your poor opinion of the boy, but is he in the neighbourhood?
Well, on and off. When his father doesn't thrash him, he stays. When he does thrash him, he goes.
Then has he thrashed him in the last day or two, do you know?
About 3 days ago last, as I heard it, and he ran. I'm sure I wouldn't know where to find him.
Ah, well, I would, Mrs. Cunliffe. Thank you.
Oh, Sherlock, so there you are.
I'm very sorry I wasn't in for lunch. It completely slipped my mind.
Never mind about that now. I'm sure we can forgive you just this once. Sherlock, the Turnbulls have invited us all to take tea at the Manor House.
Have they indeed? What in heaven's name are they up to, I wonder?
Well, there's gratitude for you.
Very sorry, I must go.
Well, I never did. Mrs. Conley, have you any idea where he's going to?
I'm afraid he's going to find that new bugs, Mum.
Oh, really? That boy would try the patience of a saint.
Sherlock!
Hello, Newbugs.
Pleasure to see you.
Have you any idea what sort of dog?
Ooh, a big dog.
Yes, but I can see that, Newbugs, but what kind of dog?
Look, retriever. Ordinary Labrador retriever.
No, not an ordinary retriever, Newbugs.
Eh?
Look, 2 hind feet, front left, no front right. A 3-legged retriever, Newbugs.
How many legs have I got?
2.
And how many prints am I making?
A 4-legged dog that walks on 3 legs, but why?
I've known a fox do it. He had a thorn in his paw.
A dog with a thorn in its paw.
After an orgy of preparation, we set out for tea at the Manor House. Aunt Rachel was wearing a hat so covered in ribbons that she looked like a man-of-war dressed overall. Her excuse for this extravagance being that she was helping the poor ribbon makers of Coventry. Brother Gideon had buttoned himself into a suit usually reserved for funerals and looked tight as a grape. And Charity? What can one say of Charity? She looked the same as ever, a highly gilded pill. I endeavored to make myself inconspicuous, a task rendered difficult by Aunt Rachel's determination that we be seen by as many people as possible.
The carriage has come into view, Colonel.
Then prepare to admit them, Ranjit. We are quite ready for them, and we shall make them truly welcome.